From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Supreme Court dismisses appeal by former Imo State Governor Emeka Ihedioha seeking to overturn judgment sacking him from office. Apex Court insists it does not have competence to review its own judgment. Chinese national quarantined in Lagos for suspected coronavirus tests negative to the disease. State government says confirmed case in Nigeria remains only one. House of Representatives resolves to suspend plenary for 2 weeks as it expresses worry over coronavirus risk due to porosity of National Assembly complex. And Iran temporarily frees over 54,000 prisoners as part of measures to combat the new coronavirus spread. Plus business, sports, and news from Abuja, the FCT, and later international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, Nigerian stock market makes history today as members and regulators vote unanimously in favor of its demutualization plans.
And on sports news tonight, International Olympic Committee reiterates its commitment to the successful staging of the Tokyo Olympic Games despite threat of the coronavirus.
Hello, and from Abuja, Minister of Health confirms Director General of the National Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chikwe Hekwazu, on self-quarantine after returning from China as NCDC boss dismisses rumor of ill health.
Our decision is final. That's the verdict of the Supreme Court today as it declared that its January 14th judgment on the Imo State governorship election is final. In a split decision of 6-1, the Supreme Court dismissed Mr. Emeka Ihedioha's application seeking a review of the judgments which removed him as the governor of Imo State. The 7-man panel of the Apex Court, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, described the application by Mr. Ihedioha as an invitation to sit on appeal over its judgment.
The dream of Mr. Emeka Ihedioha to return to the Imo State Government House as the governor finally hit the rocks as the Supreme Court affirms its earlier decision which sacked him as the governor of the state. Arguing his client's case, Mr. Kano Agabi informs the court that the judgment that installed Senator Hope Uzodinma was obtained by fraud, having misled the court into believing that he suffered unlawful exclusion in 388 polling units. He insists that the court has the inherent power under the Constitution to reverse itself. Lawyer to Senator Hope Uzodinma, Mr. Damian Dodo, however, disagrees with the submissions of Mr. Agabi as he explains that the Apex Court lacks the jurisdiction to sit on appeal over a judgment it has delivered. After argument from the parties, Justice Olukayo Deriwola delivers the majority verdict, affirming the court's earlier decision which sacked Mr. Emeka Ihedioha as the governor of Imo State. In a minority judgment, Justice Chima Nweze disagrees with the majority verdict as he affirms the Court of Appeal's decision which upheld Ihedioha's victory, adding that the Apex Court in the January 14, 2020 judgment wrongly declared Senator Hope Uzodinma as the winner of the election. Although Mr. Kano Agabi was unavailable for comments, lawyers of Senator Hope Uzodinma and INEC shared their thoughts on the judgment.
I thank the Supreme Court for being firm on its decision. The dissenting judgment, we also listened to it. What was before the court was like a fresh reply to petition, and the facts put forward will have amounted to hearing the petition all over. Thank God the majority decision of the Supreme Court appreciates this and declined to be drawn into sitting on appeal about his own decision.
All the justices, each one of them has his own mind to determine each issue brought before them. That's what played out today. The judgment, the decision here was 6-1. The fact that the 6 justices agree to dismiss the application does not stop Justice Nweze from writing his own dissenting judgment. But then, simply put, the decision of the majority is a decision that will be executed.
The judgment of the Apex Court finally lays to rest the issue of who is the authentic winner of the governorship election in Imo State.
For Governor Hope Uzodimma, whose victory was again reaffirmed by the Apex Court, the position of the Supreme Court reflects the true feelings of the people of Imo State who voted for him during the March 9, 2019 governorship election. He commends the judiciary for standing by the truth while promising that his administration will continue to deliver good governance and prosperity to the people of the state.
The judgment represents the expectations and the mandate of our people. It will give glory to God that at the end of the day, truth came out. And we commend the wisdom of the Supreme Court in standing by the truth. We dedicate the victory to Almighty God, and it is my hope that God will give me the wherewithal, the wisdom and knowledge to do that which He will take glory. Amen. So I invite all Imo citizens, sons and daughters, home and abroad, to come. Let us team up to take our state to the next level. Well, in this business, you must eschew the spirit of sportsmanship. It's not every time you win. It's also not every time you lose. When you win, you carry the losers along. When you lose, you follow those who won. So my advice to them is to come and bring the ideas. Let us team up, create a signage that will develop Imo State and bring succor to our people.
There are more commendations for the Supreme Court over its judgment today, this time from the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC. The national chairman of the party, Mr. Adams Oshomole, says the judgment affirmed that the choice of the people of Imo State has been respected. He made the comments shortly after the Supreme Court dismissed Mr. Ihedioha's application.
I do not think that what has happened today was strange. We know that Ihedioha did not have the required number, and that is a fact that nobody has ever disputed. How anybody thought he can impose someone who did not meet the spread is only known to PDP because they are specialized in rigging, and they see rigging as their birthright. And that is why they could have the guts to be protesting to foreign embassies as if Nigeria is a colony under the supervision of some foreign powers. So I think what the Supreme Court has done today for me is just to reaffirm that they are the supreme. They are supreme, and whatever they did last time was on the basis of what was before them. They did not make mistake. There are no gaps. There are no ambiguity, and therefore there was no basis to reapproach them to sit on appeal in their own judgment. And I think they are just being consistent with the position they took in previous cases. Of course, as a party chairman, and I believe for every PC member and well-wishers, and indeed all Democrats, and all those who believe in the rule of law, who believe that imperfect as the Supreme Court can be, they remain supreme, we are happy.
For the main opposition, the People's Democratic Party, today's judgment is a disconcerting endorsement of electoral fraud, which places a huge burden on the court and the Lord Justices. The party noted that in the face of the sad verdicts, Justice Chima Nweze's judgment presents a glimpse of hope for the nation's judiciary, noting that the party abides completely by every word of the judgments of Justice Nweze as treated facts, which are truly sacred. The party's position is contained in a statement saying, "It is indeed unfortunate that the Supreme Court had the wholesome opportunity to redeem itself and correct its errors, but chooses to hide behind technicality to justify and endorse an electoral fraud. What Nigerians expected of the Supreme Court, says the error in its earlier judgments had been fully established, was to summon the courage to affirm its infallibility by correcting the errors and handing over victory to the rightful winner. Sadly, it failed to do so." The party says the judgments will continue to haunt the Supreme Court, as according to the party, it has created a burden of precedence and fallibility on the court. Let's get some more insight into today's verdict by the Supreme Court on the appeal by Mr. Ihedioha, and we're being joined at the News at 10 by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, who is in our studio in Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Okutepa, on the News at 10.
Thank you, Amarachi.
What's your reaction to today's judgment of the Supreme Court in the Imo governorship election?
Well, I was not expecting anything less than what the Supreme Court did. The Supreme Court had consistently remained resolute in not setting aside or overruling itself in the same judgment, no matter how people cry. And I think it would have been a sad day for the judiciary if the Supreme Court was bullied into changing the stand it took. And I think that is what is expected. I know that the Supreme Court is supreme. I also take note that people complained of the error they made. That is within the purview of the opinions of people. But when it comes to justice delivery, we must give it to the Supreme Court, no matter how angry we are. Now, politics is different from the dispensation of justice in court. Judges are not politicians. They ought not to be politicians. And politicians want to win at all costs. And in any contest, there must be a winner, there must be a loser. Supreme Court spoke the same language when it came to Bayelsa. It spoke the same language when, sometime in 2011, I was privileged in one of the matters in the case of Ugba and Suswam. Supreme Court said it cannot revisit its decision, and that these provisions of our Constitution that gives them 60 days within which to determine election petitions haven't lapsed. They became effectively, their jurisdiction became effectively ousted. And I'm happy today also that it was a 6-1, which means that there is real hope that in no distant future, the Supreme Court may also have to take a look at whatever had happened. It is not unexpected that dissenting judgments are rendered in our courts. And I'm happy that it happened. I think that is a demonstration of impartiality of their lordships. And I think that notwithstanding our perceptions about their lordship sitting in the Supreme Court, my appeal to us Nigerians is that we must have respect for the institution of judiciary. We must make a distinction between judges that are sitting in the judiciary and the institution of judiciary. So I was not expecting anything less than what happened today. And it was the day that every one of us was looking for, so that judiciary is not intimidated into changing its position when it's rendered a position, a position on an issue. So that's my expectation, and it came to pass.
And hopefully, the lawyers have learned the lesson that the Supreme Court cannot overturn its own judgments. So do you subscribe to the fact that the image of the Supreme Court has suffered any setback in view of the Imo and Bayelsa judgments?
Well, let me say that judgments are not based on people's sentiments or political partisan interests. Yes, the way and manner our politicians, both divide, carry themselves in this whole scenario clearly shows the immaturity with respect to them of our political class. They have not learned the act of sportsmanship, of accepting defeat, even when defeat stares them on the face. There was a time where some of these politicians went to embassy, and there was a time when one of them also said that nobody will be sworn in Imo State. I think we must learn how to be matured in our approach. We must learn to return to the judiciary. I think the best thing was done when lawyers returned to the judiciary to right the wrong. And even God himself has one occasion changed his mind when he decreed that Ezekiah was going to die. Ezekiah pleaded his cause, and God added another 15 years. So if God can change his stand, Supreme Court can also be persuaded. But in doing so, It shouldn't be by way of blackmail or by political pressure and causing them to change their position, like whether in climatology. No, they are not, because those are jurists of impeccable character and repute. And when I hear somebody tonight saying that all of them are bad judicial officers, I weep for this country, because even my Lord Justice Nweze, that delivered a dissenting judgment on your politics today, somebody came and he was a lawyer, and I weep. The judiciary must be protected. Right. I'm not saying all is well, but notwithstanding, I think the judiciary still remains the best among the three arms of government. And there may be some bad egg, but it constitutes a infinitesimal number of the majority of impeccable judicial officers.
Right, and that would be a good place to leave it. Mr. Jibrin Okutekpa, thank you again for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you, Amarachi. God bless you.
Same to you, too. In part 2, after the break, a federal high court dismisses application by former Boko Haram spokesperson Ali Sanda Koduga, alleging breach of his fundamental human rights. Do join us again.